Alright, we pass the pages.
Yeah, sure.
I can come over a little bit.
Alright.
Yep.
I, from value morality, any philosophical claim must be first grounded in conditions for the intersubjectivity of argumentation. April 1. We ground philosophy if we inquire into intersubjectivity of argumentative discourse rather than objectively valid knowledge. Argumentative discourse is selling a limbo as we discuss anything by arguments, since only those who argue presuppose theories of argumentative discourse is irreducible for anyone who thinks anything intersubjectivity of argumentative speech is methodologically prior to any deduction. The discussion of truth of any philosophy presupposes the validity of the assumptions that allow such argumentation in the first place. It is impossible to reject the argument's validity claims. April 2. The ground of philosophy is seen as possible if prior to any claim of knowledge be reflected on validity claims that cannot be contested without self-contradiction. All the critiques of validity claims presuppose understanding of validity claims in advance of any arguments. Both must understand what it means to assert and doubt something. The only possible basis for making arguments is identified validity claims that cannot be disputed since they underlie any arguments. And validity claims are normative because they define what makes good or bad arguments and must create norms. Reason is a precondition to see by all arguments, and in fact, reason is the fundamental norm that grounds ethical claims. April 3. That validity conditions are normative leads to the unity of theoretical and practical reason. The distinction between this and reflection by consciousness lies in the overcoming of a slip system that a single subject is capable of valid thought without having to share meaning with others. This provides a chance to negative philosophical grounding of ethical norms as reflection on the normative condition of the possibility of a valid argumentation about fact. Reason is a principle that must be universally acknowledged through self-consciousness and mediated through recognition of others. And this is normative condition of the possibility of self-fact. Reason is the fundamental norm of reciprocity for all validity claims acknowledged by anyone who tries to argue this reference to meta-norm governing norms. Human reason is the internal grounding condition of ethical norms. The fact reason leads to the conclusion that the freedom of will is the primary guiding principle of ethics. Reason cannot exist independently of people. Reason is internal to people. That reason or thinking about things is the will. So the fact reason means the will. No one could will the unfreedom of his or her will because it would restrict the self-legislative function of the will itself. This creates a contradiction because willing unfreedom requires the freedom of the will in the first place. This means the will must be freed. However, the free will open pursue any desires is merely a slave to simple actual freedom is found in the moral will and able to choose what it ought to desire and constrain itself accordingly. Smith. The will is the way the mind functions and isn't abstract from everything empirical. What is left is the pure eye capacity for freedom. That everything goes is freedom of arbitrary choice, but the will has resources to self-limit. Limits are not a contradiction of freedom, but it's essential to a will implies meaningful life in which one can take place with presupposes a community of life with a community of wills whom we cannot choose to be without. It is that irreducible plurality that makes willing a transaction between subjects. So long as the will is arbitrary, it is not really freedom of the arbitrary will may pursue various impulses. It has not yet attained control over its impulses. Moral freedom retains the capacity to desire and to value desires. The moral will is expressed for action to change the world to reduce the ends of the individual. The ends of the individuals are determined by the desires of subjects and the moral right to pursue the welfare and obligation to adopt the welfare of others as their end. Haman. In moral freedom and in morality, freedom exists in self-determining activity of the will. The subjective will expresses itself through actions involving the transformation of the external reality in conformity with the ends given by the subject's welfare. The subject recognizes that other subjects have the same ends as the welfare of others is essentially a moral act. Deontology asserts a right of good while utilitarianism asserts maximization of welfare. This is a conflict as a dialect between the subjects. An intention for my welfare cannot justify an action that is wrong, but welfare must not be sacrificed to right the preservation of my life as a precondition for having rights at all. If I were prohibited from infringing the rights of others to save my own life, I would forfeit all my rights and my entire freedom would be negated. F welfare without right lacks justification. Rights without welfare is empty. The ultimate outcome is the good. The unity of right and welfare. The good is the full, universal, realized freedom. Therefore, morality creates an individual obligation to promote the good to find established rules, the right and welfare of the self and others. However, at this point, although the individual is obligated to pursue the good, its content is empty. The individual can only give meaning to the good by submitting the will to the rational social institutions or the general will. Newhouser. On the moral subjects lack the resources to give content to the good, while subjects may desire the good in the absence of the products that promote the freedom of all they cannot know. What the good requires the moral subjectivity fails to satisfy the will because it cannot give determinacy to his own rating. Constantly, the solution lies in the rational social institutions. They charge with social life and the members and beings to realize the freedom of the moral subjectivity and providing a social framework that provides determinate content for the good. Because the individual will cannot give content to the good alone, except that the general will as the embodiment of the individual will is necessary for true freedom. The individuals in a society must adopt the ends of the general will as their own. This commits them to the fulfillment of the ends of the general will. Newhouser 2. The state embodies mediated unity. The relevant legislation is executed in accord with society's conception of the good ways where the general will is given determined the content of existence. The state incorporates habits and citizens enter as particular individuals with divergent interests because this difference is to be incorporated into the state that concerns to integrate the wills of the citizens with the general will. They by transforming citizens to embrace the will of the general will as their own. The individuals embrace the ends of the state by experiencing the roles of citizens that has their own self-will. For this, the general will provides them with a shared project carrying out of which is an end in itself. Therefore, the standard is consistency with the advancement of the ends of the general will. My first contention is that it's good encompasses the welfare of all because individuals have an obligation to promote the good. They're obligated to assist people in need. Haman 2. The good encompasses the right and welfare of myself and all others, and thus constitutes the end. It's the will, the relation between the individual will and the good is obligation. An individual has a duty to promote the good of others. Morality requires one helps others in need. Morality recognizes the will's inner attitude towards self, since individuals participate in the universal will. Unity exists among them. Therefore, they will be individually give rise to positive obligations. Because the general will embodies the will, the general will is the relation between the obligation to promote the ends of others and thus to assist people in needs, the most fundamental moral obligation. Second, a membership in the community and the acceptance of the general will creates an obligation to assist people in need. Even 3. The state is a relationship between the citizens to the citizen has duty to fellow citizens when he violates an obligation imposed for the good of another citizen, such as a duty to rescue, he commits a wrong against state and duty for truthfully state exists toward the interests that compose it, fulfilling one's duty toward the universe does not require sacrifice of one's interests and second, one to achieve protection of rights and satisfaction of material needs and I fulfill my duty to assist. I do obtain protection for myself and my fellow citizens and the victim. I am fulfilling my duty to the state fulfills the duty to the victim. The duty is a social one owed to individuals as well as the community. Thus, by submitting to the general will and the state, individuals enter into a relationship with others that creates an obligation to assist people in need. Third, the function of the state is to create the conditions necessary for the fulfillment of individual freedom. The state therefore has an obligation to secure the welfare of its members. However, citizens have a reciprocal duty to take the answers of rational citizens, their own, including an obligation to protect other citizens. Even 5. Even 4, sorry. The state has a duty to secure the welfare of its members, preserving them from all these services, not rights inherent belonging to are inherent rights inherent belonging to the community. Right? Citizens are reciprocal duty to the state in particular. The citizens are obligated to provide services necessary for the common good, but no officer or friends of the state acts for the citizens. If citizens have no duty to act in such cases, the state would fail to fulfill its obligation to undermine its ethical relationship with the citizens. Thus, your first.
Okay. Is that the last? You didn't read this?
No.
Oh, okay. Alright, so what's the standard?
Consistency with the advancement of the ends of the general will.
Alright, great. What are the ends of the general will? What does that mean?
So that's in Haman. So like the argument is that when we like the will has to pursue the good and
What is the good?
the unity of right and welfare.
Okay, where is that?
That's
The
in,
unity of right and welfare.
That's in Haman 1.
Okay, Haman 1 establishes what the good is.
Yeah.
Okay, and what is the good again?
The unity of right and welfare.
What does that mean, the unity of right and welfare?
Okay, so the argument in Haman is that we have we have both a duty to the right, which is like doing like what it, like I guess you can see kind of like one way to explain it would be kind of like deontology plus utilitarianism, because the argument is that rights without welfare is empty because like the ends of your action are not actually achieved, which means freedom is not actually it's not actualized, whereas welfare without rights lacks justification, meaning that like a taking wrong action is not consistent with the way
Okay.
you will the action.
So the 3 pieces of evidence under the standard, that's the offense?
Yeah.
Okay. Haman 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do I link offense back to the standard?
You just prove that we don't have an obligation to the ends of the general will, like an obligation to the good would not entail an obligation to people in need.
Okay. So to prove that an obligation, okay, I want to get this straight. An obligation to the general will does not entail helping individuals in need. That's how
That's what you have to prove. Yes.
Okay, that's my burden under your standard. That's how I derive offense under your standard, correct?
Right.
Okay. Then let's talk about the internal link between, at the top of the case you say that everything is intersubjective in terms of ethical claims, correct?
Yeah, reasons are intersubjective.
Okay, so reasons between individuals are intersubjective, right?
What do you mean by reasons?
Like you have a separate reason than I do for doing a certain action or willing a certain judgment, correct? Between persons.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand where's the internal link in between the reasons of the individual versus the general will, or
Okay, so that
the community.
I think it's either Newhouse 1 or 2. They explain that they at this point, like before that, like
Okay,
each
so the
individual
internal
has
link is the new Hauser evidence.
yeah,
That's the internal link from the individual to the general will, correct?
right.
Okay. And what does Newhauser 1 explain?
So at before Newhauser 1, so we've established that an individual has an obligation to the good. However, that good is empty without the state, which means in order to reconcile conflicting claim or conflicting wills, the individuals submit to the rational social institutions in order to reconcile those
What's
differences.
a rational social institution?
A state that would fulfill the good.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, is it 4 minutes or 4?
Yeah. I'll be right outside. there's going to be 2 off. Facing. Yeah. Ready?
Yep.
Okay. First, epistemology is a study and knowledge created given the resolution poses an ethical question. Epistemic comes logical power discussion of resolutions of a process by which we create knowledge is flawed. The results of that process are unreliable, and acquisition of moral knowledge requires consequentialism. A. The ends are relevant in any ethical system. They tell whether or not the means are impossible to know the killing is bad unless we know it results in death. The killing results in unicorns wouldn't be normatively bad. B. We know all possible knowledge further understand ethical consequences takes into account possible information about action for ethically uncertain ideas. Defense, the after never prematurely exclude all the answer calculations. C. All knowledge stems from experience. Nothing we know nothing for sensory input. The brain experiences develop then say something knowledge, reason, and things like the general will must be based on answers that don't constitute knowledge. D. We can know if the resolution has been upheld absent ends because existence is verified by observation. The resolution ends because needs aren't just a priori. Thus suggests the action morally must consider the ends. E. Moral rights are in conflict because their individuals dying with those with private property. Thus, our ethics must consider information that distinguishes between these rights, consequences, and means through differences in the end. And even when we look at the general, everyone agrees that we should avoid paying. Singer explains. We give equal weight and deliberation to the interests of those affected by our action. The interests and interests of representatives might be the ultimate reason for relief based on undesirable pain, not the undesirable of access pain. Access pain might be more undesirable than wise pain, and we would give greater weight to access pain and necessary consideration of the interests of acolytes scales, weighing partially, thus minimizing pain is key for one respect and interest. The primary answer we want to prevent extinction states in it. State of ethical uncertainty must prevent extinction and tax. They prevent future ethical liberation. Boschman explains. Moral uncertainty is just that our present understanding my will and opinions. We do not know what outcomes counters we will be fair. Profoundly uncertain about ultimate is recognize there is a great option value in preserving our recognized values to the future, accordingly ensuring that future management is the best way to increase probability that the future contains a lot of value. Thus, the defense is net criterion. Half criterion for annexation to preserve our ability to solve the resolution question we can't determine. Ethics without existence. To clarify, my criterion is modified utility calculus, specifically minimizing existential risk as the strongest epistemic framework. Then the contention. A's uniqueness, chromium demand is down now. Roskill in 09 explains. The impact of the downturn of the global economy starting in 2008 has an impact on the chromium market. This price is in demand plummeted, imports paid 60% lower. Demand for chromium has fallen sharply. Stainless steel, the primary end use for chromium, has collapsed. And chromium is a key component of steel, which is also low. Tacony on October 11. Countries where the production declined most of September include China with 2 million metric ton drop. The Ukraine and the U.S. is down. The links, assisting those who need increases in income, which increases demand for chromium, Cordo and 11 explains. Access in developing markets is important to continue the production of goods for growing chromium. Economies grow the demand for capital goods also increases the source for capital goods. Are high income countries, people move up the income scale, so the demand for more sophisticated consumer goods and increased wealth purely increases demand for steel. Tacony 07. The simplest explanation for increased steel demand is GDP growth after growing 3.5% for decades. Global growth averaged 5% from 04 to 07. The increased global growth had a positive effect on demand for steel. Internal link. Chromium kills the endangered sperm whale kid in 09. Endangered sperm whales are highly polluted with metal chromium. Known carcinogens, sperm whales have the highest level of metal chromium in the broadest in marine mammal. Levels similar to those found in lungs humans with chromium-induced lung cancer, maybe an additional alpha of the endangered species of metal also affects reproduction system as the ocean's top predators. Sperm whales are very polluted and inhibits their recovery. They accumulate high levels of many persistent contaminants, and whales are key to marine ecosystems. Burns explains. Whales are an important part of the world's ecosystem. First, they help nutrient cycling diaphytic to the ocean. Second, several of the marine species engage in mutualistic commensurate relationship with the whales. The decline of extinction certain cetacean species disturbs the delicate balance of health. Other species survive. Third, the monitoring of whale populations save researchers detecting significant changes in marine ecosystems, and every species is key to the overall ecosystem, key to human survival. Diner 94. Humans of other species, some part of the number of species come to the point where the ecosystem fails, humanity becomes extinct and close to the interconnected ecosystem, loss of species of access to species, matches number of species become an effect of each new extinction of brain species, increased dramatic biological simplicity, increased risk of ecosystem failure. Each new animal planet extinction developed dimly perceived and by effects could cause total ecosystem collapse and human extinction. Each new extinction increases the risk of disaster. Then, the off days. Is the interpretation all burden structures sufficient for one debater must be equally sufficient for the other via Turner these violations constantly very specific, very explicitly set to be affirmative to my mind ground under his interpretation of resolutions that I have to define that the general will does not entail this obligation to assistance needs. There is no turn ground of affirmative interpretation because all I have to do is 100% defense. That's my ground for this interpretation is to prove that that obligation does not exist. That's defense. There's no sufficient offense for the negative. C. Reciprocity. This gives him 2-1 structure advantage because he gained a turn under util under my negative criteria, but all he has to do to win the affirmative is win the offense. So he can either turn or win the framework for the affirmative. But I only have one out with ground with the internet, which means he has 2-1 strike advantage. Also, in terms of the quality of ground, see, my ground for his, he can add turns to the negative. My ground is 100% defense the affirmative, which is impossible in terms of debate sense. We always have risk of offense for the affirmative, which means he's better chance to win ground. He has more chance and more outs to win, more access to the ballot, then he has a better chance to win ground. D, fairness. Debate is competitive activity due to can base wins and also no debate have a structural advantage because you don't know if the arguments are better for more abuses. You can't do your duties to judge the theorists can first use competing interpretations reasonably advice judge position. I don't know what you think is reasonable use. My standard to mentor any other would be arbitrary. Then go to the AC. Okay. First off, Able 1. Able 1 establishes a negative ballot first. This proves that there's no coherent obligation we can establish via moral discourse. People agree in the end principle. They agree for different reasons, which means you can't establish the absolute answer. Any consistent moral obligation you need to negate. Second, this means individuals plural can't have moral obligation. Every obligation is different because they start from different starting reasons. No two are the same, and then you would negate. Third, the rest is an objective question asking about what individuals have to describe in binary question. Either they do or they don't. Subjective obligations can't be because they don't prove it one way or another. Fourth, what constitutes a need is subjective. Since every individual comes to the conclusion about what moral need differently is, it means that people can't agree with the obligation. There are different steps to what entails. You can't affirm a general will principle. Fifth, even if these are being backed off, the reason that this isn't obligatory, we can't be required to take an action if only applies to specific context. It is only permissible. Off Able 2. First, empirics when we after things other than reasons like emotional outbursts and rational decisions. Second, fallacy of the word. Just because reason shapes our actions doesn't mean the reason rationality has to be respected in the resulting ethic. Third, there's no link to morality doesn't tell us why reasons guiding action leads to an ethical system or a normative implication. Fourth, this doesn't tell us anything about what it means to have reason mind and see as good reason to act on meets it because of vagueness. At best, you reject the standard because it's a bad match with true value. At worst, I made non-unique his link. Fifth, turn the link to morality. We get a bad reason for acting like I want to kill someone because I'm a serial killer. That's just making it moral. Then, off Smith. First, there's no warrants why we need the community in order to be able to establish some sort of normal obligation. Second, it's empirics when moral claims are made without the community all the time. There are outsiders and new and hermits, etc. But third, it's not fallacy just because the community informs from relatives to mean that we ought to respect it or protect it off Haman. First, there's no way to determine what right and welfare is. That's the starting point. That's totally vague. We don't know how to link it to the normative ethics. Second, appeals to those to add the ethics, deontology, and utilitarianism, but doesn't justify them. Then, off New has this is the key internal link I established across X. First, there's no warrants why the individual is insufficient in order to create morality. My arguments on Able would say that it is. Second, if an individual leaves sex, steals morality, and still makes moral claims. Third, there's no internal link to establishing the general will, what the general means, and how we aggregate individuals as different reasons. But fourth, it says that individuals can't actualize the will. But there's no reason that has this makes no sense, but it begs the question of what the will mandates before we determine it. Be its own warrants. There's no reason that the individual has to have the resources to make the judgment. Fifth, this doesn't explain what a rational social institution is or how we cede authority to it. A, this means that we can't evaluate offense with the standard. But B means the applicant established universality because not all societies have these institutions. And six, since we're in a legal context, but he's not proving why that's morally relevant. Yep.
What's the second argument on equal? Like the argument that says it negates?
Yeah. Okay, the second argument is that this means individuals plural can't have a moral obligation because every obligation is different. They start from different first principles. I asked you in cross X. Reasons stem from the individual. If they all have different reasons, then individuals plural can't have a common moral obligation.
Alright, so all these arguments presuppose that because individuals have each individual has a different moral obligation, right? So is there an argument besides that?
All of these arguments say that.
Basically all your arguments are that we have different subjective moral obligations, correct?
Well, not just subjective moral obligations. Some of them apply to making ethical claims in general or ethical discourse, right?
But the internal warrant is that they're each person has a different.
No, not all the arguments rest on the same assumption.
Okay,
no.
so which arguments do not?
Okay, so the first one. All right, the first one is that is more nuanced than that because it says even if they can agree on an end principle, they agree for different reasons, which means that you can't have a consistent moral obligation that you can apply time after time. We can't have a general will because people differ in their reasons.
And then
the second. Sure.
I got the second one. And
okay.
What's the fifth one?
Okay, the fifth one is that even if you beat these back and say they're not reasons to negate, there are at least reasons why assisting isn't obligatory. We can't be required to do an action if it only applies in specific context under your frame.
Right, that's fine. And then what's the fourth argument against equal to?
Okay, the fourth argument is this doesn't tell us anything about what it means to have a reason. I said my negative case is a great reason to act, so it meets the able analysis because of the vagueness. So at best, you reject the standard because it's a bad metric. At worst, I mean non-unique your link.
Alright, that's fine. What's the third argument against Smith?
The third argument is that it commits the is-ought fallacy. Just because we do have norms from the community
Alright.
doesn't mean that
And then-
we ought to respect the community or
What's the number
that those
two
are the correct
argument?
ones.
What's the number 2 argument?
Number 2 is that this appeals to deontology and utilitarianism, but it doesn't justify those two theories. If you're not
Okay.
establishing
What's
like
the-
that deontology is true,
What's the
then this
number
doesn't
1
matter.
on Neuhauser 2? On Neuhauser?
Okay. Number 1 is that there's no warrant as to why the individual is insufficient. He just says like the individual can't do it alone. They can't make their own ethics, but he's just asserting that.
Okay, and then what's the number 2?
The number 2 is that if an individual leaves society, the individual still has morality. They can still make moral claims, right? Like people leave societies and move to new communities and keep their, moral beliefs or establish different moral beliefs, right?
Alright, that's fine. And then what's the link on the dissent?
Okay. The link analysis is there are two. Wait.
Actually, never mind.
There are 2 pieces of evidence.
Actually, no.
Okay. Foregone taxonomy.
Alright, and it was 4 minutes ago, right?
Yep.
What's the empirically denied argument against Table 2?
Let's see. Oh, we act for things other than reasons. There are other motivating factors like emotional outbursts. We make irrational decisions.
Okay.
The claim that we always act for reasons is false.
actually, theory, ACNC.
Okay.
Ready? Lots of violation I mean because my argument is not a necessary but insufficient burden. It's just a burden structure that just because it's not it's a burden structure. So first, that means so that the implication is that if he just proves that the connection level is more likely false than true, that's sufficient to negate because he doesn't have to win on 100% defense, and he can just prove that it's more likely true that the good does not entail or the general will does not entail a moral obligation. Second, he can turn it by saying that we have a competing moral obligation that the general will requires that rather than helping people, he can say we have this another obligation. Third, he still has the second, he still has the obligation of he has the option of running a different actor who has an obligation he can sort of feel like the individual part of running the government counter plan or something like that. Then off these standards. First, there's no abuse because he just needs to answer the contention level. That's all he needs to do. The rest across the argument doesn't apply because as long as he wins defense, as long as he wins more than 50% defense against the firm against the contention level, that's sufficient for you to negate. Then second, he can still second no abuse because he can still answer the framework level, and since it's a long framework, there's lots of links in it. That makes it pretty easy for him to win. So he has even though he may not have turned around, it's plenty easy for him to win off the AC framework because he can just win more than 50% defense, which is completely reasonable. Then go to the AC. Extent Able 1, any theory is grounded in people making arguments of the argumentative validity grounds all philosophy. This agree with the arguments about how it engages, but not he's misunderstanding the argument. Even though although our wills may be subjective, that doesn't matter because the argument is that we submit to the general will to reconcile all the differences, so it doesn't matter. So even though everything may be differently, as the part the argument that New has to choose means that we reconcile those differences, and that makes it possible to affirm because we all have one obligation because we submit to the general will. That general will mandates mandates an obligation to assist people in need. Then able to just says ability claims are what underlie any argument, so they cannot be disputed. That takes out all the responses because it is impossible to dispute ability claims because ability claims underlie every single argument. That takes out all its responses. Then extended able 3 reasons precondition for all arguments. We know that arguments need more warrants in fact reasons irrelevant ability claims. His first argument doesn't apply because arguments I'm talking about the arguments that need reasons, not just the acts. And the second, the fallacy of origin doesn't apply because my arguments that we just have to be consistent with the thing that underlies all arguments. Then the number 3 about there's no links in morality, that comes in the rest of the framework, about the part about the will. Then off the fourth argument about how he doesn't tell he can't tell what is a reason, and the group, the fourth and fifth argument, I'm not talking about arguments that need reasons. The implication is that we have to look at the fact of reason, which is that all arguments need reasons, and that means that mandates the general will. So that extent that the will must be free because otherwise the unfreedom of the will is a contradiction because because if willing something requires that the will is free in the first place. That extent Smith, the will needs to constrain itself. His argument about the opinion doesn't apply because Smith doesn't like to Smith basically the only warrant in Smith is that we need otherwise we're slave to our desires. Then extend Haven, there needs to be a unity of the right and welfare. This answers back all his arguments on the this answers back the arguments on the util entity because the util doesn't make sense because it ignores the right, which is inconsistent with the way you think you will things as contextualized in Smith. Util is specifically answered by Haman, so the only except you answer to Haman. This is not a new cross application. It's in Haman. This takes out util. Then on the argument that I don't justify deontology or utility, it doesn't matter because it's justified through the will, and off the argument that you can't tell the differences in different wills, that doesn't matter because my argument is not that. Then except that in New Hazard, individuals can give meaning to the good after submission. That means we have to submit to the general will. His arguments all point out missing links to the framework, but they're already there. Then extend the connection level. Then extends him to the general will and covers the welfare also. Since individuals have an obligation to promote the good of the general will, they have an obligation to assist people in need. The util argument doesn't matter because it's specifically preempted by the Haman argument. The Haman takes it out.
Can I read the extension you made from Haman? The extension? Can I just see what you said about util? It was written right.
Yeah.
Can I just see that?
Yeah, sure, it's right there.
Thanks. Okay. Alright, it's going to be a quick overview, then NCAC. Alright, ready? Okay. The round's going to be really easy to evaluate at the framework level because he virtually drops the negative framework and the affirmative takes too many links in order to be able to establish the criterion, which means if I'm pressing on any one of them, specifically the new Hauser analysis, which is the internal link established in CX, it's going to be game over in the framework grenade. He has no offense to util. So go to the neg. Extend that epistemology study on knowledge created given the resolution poses an ethical question. Epistemic comes a logical part of discussion of the resolution of the process by which great knowledge flawed the results of the process are unreliable. He concedes that in the last speech. This means it's game over. If he's not establishing an epistemological form, he's not in the last speech, even if you think there's some sort of embedded clash, he's not making those arguments for the last speech, don't let him make new cross-apps in the next one. He's not making any claims about epistemology in the last speech or in the 1AC, which means that if I may risk linking back to epistemology, you have to go to the util framework, regardless of whether or not you like these arguments, you think they're good arguments, it's game over when he drops it. So, extend that the acquisition of moral knowledge requires consequential. The A sub point that the ends are relevant and any ethical system to tell whether or not the means or moral it's impossible that the killing is bad unless we know it results in death. If the killing results in util points, it would be normatively bad. Extend the B sub point, we need all possible knowledge further extend ethical consequences that takes into account all possible information about an action for ethical concern, i.e. there's defense on the app. We never prematurely exclude all the answer calculations. This was specifically said, if there's any defense on the app, then epistemologically you have to look at the ends, you have to look at them in terms of util. I'm going to be making that internal link off Boschram. So, extend the Boschram analysis. Boschram says that in a state of ethical uncertainty, we would never allow an extinction state to occur because we don't know what the resolution question is. In order to be able to solve the resolution question, we have to have humanity's existence. So we prevent extinction states first. In a state of ethical uncertainty, which we are when I have defense on the affirmative criteria. This is how it's labeled. You can call it the negative framework. If there's any defense of the affirmative, you prevent extinction first. That's the Boschram analysis. It's labeled two places as I'm precluding the affirmative case in the NC that he straight drops. So my criterion is modified utility calculus, specifically minimizing existential risk as a strong scientific framework. These were labeled as taken out of his framework in the last speech, so you always prefer them to his preclusive analysis coming out of the Heyman analysis because they were labeled in the NC. Those are new cross applications he's making. I'm going to be answering that on the affirmative case. So, now go to the dissat. Extend the Roscoe analysis says the chromium demand is decreasing right now in the steps where the link evidence, cordo evidence, when he increases income, when he increases general welfare for any individual, the people who need that, they're going to increase their demand for more sophisticated goods like chromium. He can see the link story, he sees the kid evidence says that chromium kills the indigenous sperm whale. It's a known carcinogen across the reproductive problems. He Burns says that the sperm whale is essential to any ecosystem, any oceanic ecosystem, because it cycles nutrients and the phytoplankton of the oceans. It's the best, and it engages in Peninsula and mutualistic relationships with other species to keep the ecosystem. The Diner analysis says that we need every single species in order to be able to exist. We keep killing species from survival first, we're going to lose ourselves because we are a critical part of the environment. That leads to human extinction. You can see that it's the only impact back to util. The point that I'm precluding in two places. First, epistemology. Second, Boschram analysis. You have to go negative on the NC. Then go to the app. Okay. Alright. The biggest problem is he's not doing line-by-line work on the first 5 arguments that make the top of the case, which are all labeled as reasons to negate off the able analysis, because the reasons why you can't have an internal link into the general will. So, extend the first argument, which says that this proves that there's no coherent obligation that we can make via discourse. If able is right and that each individual has their own subjective reasons, we can't establish some sort of general will. His argument is that this doesn't matter because we submit to the general will. My argument is you can't establish what the general will is. We don't know what the general will is via discourse. He concedes that argument. It's the first place you negate off the able analysis. But you can extend the second one, which says that individuals plural can't have moral obligation. You can't establish a general will because individuals each have their own subjective preferences. Even if they end up with the same thing, even if we can come to some kind of compromise or consensus, that doesn't matter because the reasons behind their actions, which are the ones that establish the moral obligations, are different. That's the second place you negate. Then you can extend the number 5 argument that even if you don't like these reasons, even if you think they're not great, there's still reasons as to why the applicable universalizable wouldn't apply in a general context that he's trying to establish means the app